Scientists managed to bring back to life an animal that has been extinct for 50 years. What you're watching is not a clickbait video because it's true. Scientists really brought back a species that went extinct a half-century ago. But that's not all. In fact, scientists have raised a real army of the dead, and now they're planning to use it to destroy the Earth. Of course, there are people who can stop them, and we know for sure that they will. Our planet is in good hands. But for now, we need to figure out how the hell did these scientists manage to raise an entire army of dinosaurs. The thing is, a while ago, scientists discovered a frozen mammal on the territory of the Siberian permafrost. They named it Bessie. This creature turned out to be a type of rodent that had been dead for 46,000 years. All these years it just lay frozen in the ice, sleeping like a little bear during winter. When the scientists saw that this rodent was completely well preserved, they got an idea to bring it back to life. Yes, they wanted to resurrect an extinct animal, but why did they do that? It turns out they didn't do it just for fun. The thing is, before the Ice Age, there were much more woolly mammoths than there are now. They roamed the earth in herds of thousands. But then they started dying out somewhere around 10,000 BC, and by the end of the last Ice Age, they were already gone. Scientists believe that if these giants had lived on, our planet would have looked quite different. The very soil would be different because mammoths could easily uproot trees with their tusks and trample them into the ground. Their carcasses would then serve as fertilizer, adding nutrients to the soil. Such soil is called chernozem, and it's ideal for growing crops. That's why scientists decided to bring the mammoth back to life so that it could help restore the soil. It might sound like a good idea, but it's actually pretty stupid, because no one knows how this animal will behave after being resurrected. Maybe it'll become aggressive towards humans or other animals and spread diseases that people have no immunity against. But scientists still decided to take the risk. After doing a lot of research and gathering the necessary funding, they managed to clone the first mammoth in 2008. It was a female, and they named her Liuba. Unfortunately, she lived only 8 days. Her lungs didn't fully develop, so she simply couldn't breathe and died. However, scientists didn't stop there. They kept trying until they finally succeeded in bringing the mammoth back to life. On October 27, 2023, the world learned about the amazing news that scientists had managed to clone the first mammoth in the history of mankind. It's hard to believe, but it's true. A mammoth has been brought back to life. Scientists have named the revived mammoth Uman, which means dreamer in the local language. The baby mammoth was born thanks to the efforts of a team of 50 geneticists from Japan. They used advanced technology to recreate the DNA of this long-extinct animal, but they didn't stop there. After successfully cloning the mammoth, scientists decided not to keep it alone, so they began creating an entire mammoth army. Now they've already created more than a dozen of these creatures, and they plan to increase their numbers even more. Of course, everyone was shocked by such audacity. People began to ask, why did they need to bring back to life not just one mammoth, but an entire herd of them? It turns out, the thing is that each of these mammoths is unique and carries its own genetic information. By creating an entire herd, scientists hope to preserve the mammoth gene pool and protect it from extinction. After all, once they've brought back to life the first mammoth in history, they certainly won't stop at just one. As you understand, soon the herd will grow, and there will be dozens of these animals running around the planet. Many people are concerned about what will happen when the mammoth starts roaming free on our planet. Will it destroy everything in its path, or maybe start attacking people? But these fears seem to be in vain, because there are people who are working to ensure that this doesn't happen. For example, some time ago, geneticists from Cambridge University created a special program whose purpose is to monitor cloned animals and make sure they don't harm the environment. If the mammoths start causing problems, these people will put them back to sleep. So there's no need to worry. And here's another great news. It turns out that mammoths aren't the only animals that scientists have brought back to life. Not long ago, scientists from Harvard University managed to wake up something even more terrible, a virus that's been sleeping in the Siberian ice for 50 years. This virus belongs to the family of giant viruses and is called Pithovirus sibericum. Before it was discovered, it had been hibernating in the permafrost layer for about 50,000 years. Once it was woken up, the virus became active and began to multiply rapidly. At first, scientists thought that nothing threatening would come of it. After all, this virus had been dormant for so long that it most likely lost its dangerous properties. But then it turned out that the virus was still active. It continued to mutate, becoming more and more dangerous. Now scientists are afraid that if the virus gets out of the lab, it could cause a real disaster. That's why they've taken all possible measures to contain it. The virus has been kept under several layers of protection, and no one is allowed near it without special permission. However, despite all the security measures, the virus still managed to get out into the world. It happened in July of this year, when a scientist accidentally dropped the container with the virus. Fortunately, the container was intact, and the virus didn't spill out. But this incident raised many questions. Could the virus leak accidentally again? What if someone decides to release it on purpose? These questions have no answers. It turns out that the threat of a virus isn't the worst thing that our planet faces. Not long ago, scientists from Oxford University conducted an experiment where they tried to bring back to life an animal that died out 10 million years ago. They didn't choose just any animal. It was a bird that looks like an ordinary chicken, but it's actually completely different. Scientists named this bird Aehophobia. It looks similar to modern chickens, but it's much larger. Its wings are wider and its beak is sharper. To bring the bird back to life, scientists used the same methods they used to clone the mammoth. They took genetic material from a relative of the elephant bird that lives in Madagascar today and inserted it into a chicken egg. Then they incubated the egg and waited. After 28 days, the egg hatched, but instead of a chicken, a weird bird that looked like a mix between an eagle and a chicken came out. At first, the bird behaved like an ordinary chicken, running around the farm and pecking at food. But then, something strange happened. The bird grew rapidly, and within a few weeks, it reached a size of almost 2 meters. Moreover, the bird began to behave aggressively towards humans, attacking them and trying to eat them. This behavior frightened the scientists, and they decided to destroy the bird. However, this decision wasn't easy to make. After all, this was the first time in history that scientists had ever brought back to life a creature that died out millions of years ago. But in the end, the bird was destroyed, and the scientists breathed a sigh of relief. However, now they're worried that the bird's relatives could attack them. Indeed, in 2023, there was a case where a relative of the elephant bird tried to attack scientists. It's scary to imagine what would happen if this bird was brought back to life and then released into the wild. It could cause real chaos. But fortunately, this hasn't happened yet. And scientists are taking measures to ensure that it never does. So don't worry. The planet's inhabitants are fully aware of the danger posed by these creatures and won't let them do any harm. However, if this happens anyway, there's always someone who can stop them. Who do you think that could be? Write your version in the comments below, and that's all for today. See you later.